Good morning, family of FAST. Matt Mossman, the Chief Endurance Officer over at EndurElite. Today, we're going to be talking about carb loading and if men and women should carb load differently. Now, a typical carb loading period before a race looks something like this. About 6 days before the race, and for a few days, you basically decrease your carbohydrate intake to deplete muscle glycogen stores. And this is followed by 2 to 3 days before the race, eating a higher concentration of carbohydrate, anywhere from 8 to 10 grams per kilogram body weight, to basically super saturate muscle glycogen stores before your race. And this method has been shown to increase performance up to 20% and delay fatigue during the races. So tried and true strategy. But an interesting study came across my desk the other day from Chief Science Officer Jordan Joy that demonstrated that men and women may need to carb load differently to produce basically optimal race results and to saturate muscle glycogen stores. So we're going to take a quick look at this study / meta-analysis done at Baylor University by Darren Willoughby and Associates, and see basically how men and women should be carb loading differently as far as amounts to produce optimal race results. Now, the main difference when you're carb loading for men and women seems to be related to a hormone women have called estradiol, which is important in the development of secondary sex characteristics and is at peak concentrations during that special time of the month. Now, estradiol, it appears, has an effect on which substrate the body will use during endurance exercise or racing. More specifically, with the higher concentrations of estradiol, it appears, especially at lower intensities in women, that this hormone can affect basically the body's ability to use glycogen and in favor uses triglycerides or fat, which really isn't quite a high-powered energy source compared to glycogen. So let's look at a few studies that this meta-analysis covered, and we'll provide a take-home point for you to basically tell you how you, as a woman, should be carb loading different from a man. So the first study looked at both men and women. So both men and women increased carb intake from 55 to 75% of total energy intake. Total energy intake remained the same. So they both bumped up their carbohydrates. For men, it was 8.2 grams per kilogram body weight, and women, it was 6.4 grams per kilogram body weight. So carbohydrates bumped up, but total calories remained the same. And the results show that men increased glycogen storages by 41% and improved performance by 45% for this kind of glycogen supercompensation carb loading method. On the other hand, women showed no increase in glycogen storages and only 5% performance in increases. So even though both men and women bumped their carbohydrate intake up based on the typical carb loading format, the women really didn't see any significant differences in the amount of glycogen that was stored and subsequent increases in performance. Now, here's where it gets important. In the second study, men and women achieved the same level of carb supercompensation by consuming 12 grams per kilogram body weight of fat-free body mass of carbohydrate. Now, for this one, this is where it gets interesting. For this, both men and women showed similar increases in glycogen stores and performance. So what does this mean for a woman? Well, for a woman to achieve this intake of 12 grams per kilogram body weight of carbohydrate, they would need to increase total energy intake by approximately 34% during each carb loading phase before a race. So total calories would go up 34%, and then again they'd want to eat about a percentage of that calories, they would want to do 12 grams per kilogram body weight fat-free mass in carbohydrates to basically get that same level of glycogen supercompensation that will lead to increased race performance and delay fatigue. So what's really the conclusion of this study? Well, first and foremost, it appears that men and women do need to carb load differently. Female athletes do have the capacity for carb supercompensation with an increase in calories during the loading phase. So again, during that 3, maybe 4-day carb loading supercompensation phase, women want to increase their caloric intake by 34%. And again, make sure that you're consuming anywhere from, I would say, depending on body weight and fat-free mass, anywhere from 10 to 12 grams per kilogram body weight. So that is all I have on carb loading and the differences on how men and women should be carb loading before races to produce optimal results. So, if you have a buddy that's all about carb loading, especially if they're a woman, please share this video with them. If you want other videos like this on endurance training, nutrition, supplementation, and my other random musings, subscribe to the EndurElite YouTube channel or head on over to the EndurElite blog at www.endurelite.com. Get social with us on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, my endurance friends, stay fueled, stay focused, stay fast, and stay informed.